Welcome to Rep Matters, where we bring a diverse perspective to tech and venture capital. We sat down with some of Canada's most interesting entrepreneurs and investors in order to understand their journeys, the impacts they hope to have moving forward, and how to improve equity and inclusion for the Black community in tech and VC. As well as being leaders in their respective fields, these entrepreneurs and investors all have something else in common. They're Black. Their lived experience as Black Canadians has helped shape their path to success, and we made sure to dive into what it means to thrive in such a homogeneous ecosystem. I hope you enjoy. Today on Rep Matters, we have the highly successful and versatile Isaac Olowolafe Jr. Isaac is the co-founder and president of Dreammaker Corporation, a Toronto-based vertically integrated asset management firm with divisions in real estate, development, property management, insurance, and venture capital. He is the founder and general partner of Dreammaker Ventures, an early-stage fund that has invested in the likes of Hopper, Hubba, and Second Closet. Isaac is also a philanthropist whose foresight has paved the way for Black entrepreneurs. He is a founding member of the Black Innovation Fellowship based out of Ryerson's DMZ, an incubator which supports the next generation of Black tech entrepreneurs. Isaac has received numerous awards for both his philanthropic and business success, and I'm truly honored to have him on the show. Isaac, welcome to Rep Matters.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite.
Of course. Couldn't come to Toronto and not talk to you. So for those who don't know you, what led you to venture capital, and what is your role now with Dreammakers?
Great question. So I've been in the tech space for about 5 years now. Originally, I started in the real estate space, and we're still heavily in the real estate side. I started as a real estate agent roughly about 10 years ago, 12 years ago at University of Toronto. And since then, we built it out from a real estate brokerage to a real estate development company and then to the VC side. The reason why we chose the VC side is because about 6 years ago, our investors approached us asking what are some of the key fundamentals that we saw that Toronto was going to be growing into. And for us, we always focus all our investments around fundamentals, whether it's immigration, private sector investment, public sector investment into the Canadian ecosystem. And then that's when we noticed that Toronto was growing into sort of what people were calling as the next Silicon Valley North. So as a result of that, we started to study the tech space and study the climate, and we saw that tech was becoming more popular. And as a team, we decided, do we want to be a service provider to the tech space or actually be involved with the growing space? We decided to become involved, and that's when we launched Dreammaker Ventures. And we wanted to take a strategic approach into it. So we started off with prop tech and insure tech companies, which aligned with what we already, the industries that we were in. And then we rolled into more strategic investments like Hopper and Second Closet.
Amazing. So what's your basic investment thesis?
So basic investment thesis is what industries can we invest into that technology is going to disrupt that industry. So us being in the real estate space, my dad for almost 20 years, myself for the last 15 years, we saw real estate as a space that was going to be disrupted using technology as a disruptor. So that's when we started in the prop tech space. So we're looking at different tech companies that were going to disrupt industries that we had an understanding of. And then we were looking at companies that had a good, solid core team and advisory team. And that's what led us to companies like Second Closet and other companies that we invested into like Hopper and Ad Hoc. So our thesis at that time was, what are the best companies with the best led founders that we could invest into that we felt were going to disrupt the different industries that they were going into.
Tell me about the Black Innovation Fellowship and what your involvement in that is.
Yeah, so the Black Innovation Fellowship, again, that was a thing that organically, something we always talk about within our company is, let's do something organically. Like when we're starting a new business, all the businesses we started, they weren't forced, they were organic. We were doing sales, and then we sold a lot of investment properties, and we now had to manage the properties with tenants. So we organically launched Dreammaker Management. After trying to get access to a lot of real estate projects and realized the market was getting saturated, we knew we had to create our own product. So that's why we organically launched Dreammaker Developments. So when it comes down to how Black Innovation Fellowship formed, it was really based on me first being involved with the tech space, getting invited to all these different tech events, whether it be at the DMZ, Mars, Communitech, and realized there was a lack of diversity. Now, if this tech space was already 12 years built, 30 years built, I probably wouldn't be as bold to be like, let me try and disrupt the tech space, even though I was only 3 years into the space. But the DMZ at that time was only 5 years in because it's just celebrated its 10th year. So I knew I was still at a point where if I come with this new concept and this strategy, it'll work. And I felt that the tech ecosystem was going to be welcoming to it. So we brought the idea to Ryerson because of the DMZ being one of the top tech incubators, and we said, wouldn't it be great to focus on, increasing the number of applicants that get into the DMZ. So let's not create a special program and a special location within the DMZ. Leverage the same infrastructure of the DMZ, but let's add more seats. Let's add more, create more access for Black entrepreneurs, which was very obvious that was underrepresented within the tech space. So that's when the whole idea of the Black Innovation formed, and it's going on a year and a half right now. And so we're excited of the impact and the ripple effect of what a program like that is going to do.
And so, knowing that this is going to air a little bit further along in timeline, is there something you can say about how Dreammaker Ventures is going to move forward with its newest fund?
So we had Dreammaker Ventures Fund 1, and we were excited that we got access to a lot of good companies. But we realized for us to be able to invest in underrepresented founders, we have to create capacity for them. We have to create an environment where they could get growth, traction, mentorship, networks, collaboration. So we knew we were doing that with the Black Innovation Fellowship. So we knew at that point that we are now in a position to create a fund to be able to give them scalability and sustainability. So that's when we launched and are launching the Black Innovation Fund 2.0. So we're excited about that because what we're doing is we're making sure the program, which is first of the kind in Canada, was going to have legs to last not only 2 years, 3 years, but hopefully to the point of us saying that we have our first unicorn out of the Black community. So we're excited about the BIF 2.0. We're excited about our early LPs that will be coming on board, like BDC and RBC Ventures. We're even more excited about the impact and the ripple effects of having successful Black founders in the Canadian ecosystem.
So congratulations, first of all, that's
Thank you.
huge. The capacity for scalability in this is really what's amazing about it.
Yes.
You've already set this engine in motion, and now it's like, okay, how can we make everything scalable?
Correct.
Which is exactly what's needed in the Black community, in the Black entrepreneurship community specifically. How has fundraising changed since George Floyd was murdered?
It's changed drastically. For the last 2 years, we were trying to raise on what we were calling the diversity fund last year and the year before. And we met with a lot of corporations and we different LPs, and there was interest in the fund, but not to the point where LPs were ready to write a check. I felt at that time the market was pretty saturated in diversity funds in general, and the George Floyd incidents, unfortunate, really showed that there had to be a more narrow focus on a specific underrepresented group, which was the Black founders. And piggybacking on the work already done with the Black Innovation Fellowship, it was a nice organic, once again, evolution to the fund. So now, because of the focus and the phase that we're in, fundraising has become much easier, which typically it's not. I've been fundraising and raising capital for probably the last 15 years in all my various businesses, whether on the real estate side, development side, and now on the venture side. But because of what our focus is, we're glad that we're able to see a lot of LPs within the tech space and outside the tech space, a lot of corporations, and also the government now that has shown a strong interest in being part of not only the fellowship to expand it out, but also the fund as well.
Amazing. And, the newfound awareness that the recent social situations with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, do you feel like that awareness is here to stay, or do you see this as a moment in time, an opportunity that needs to be really taken advantage of?
A little bit of both. I think across mainstream, everyone had the ability, and I think COVID helped in everyone being home and sort of slowed down in their day-to-day activities to be able to see on TV and online what systemic racism looks like in all different institutions. So I think the impact is going to be long lasting, but the period that we're in, where all the stars are aligned, where corporations are thinking about it, where individuals are thinking about it, where media is thinking about it, that's a phase that as a community we need to take advantage of, and make sure that whatever actions that are done is not thinking short term, but thinking, okay, what actions can we do now that will positively impact our children's children in terms of fundamental actions. And that's the way we're operating, even with the fund and with the fellowship, is what can we do so that in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, the work that we've done now is still having an impact in 10, 20 years.
That's amazing. That the generational,
Yeah,
wealth building.
exactly,
I
exactly.
love it. I love it.
Yes.
So you're a young black man in Toronto. Have you ever experienced racism either in your day-to-day life or within the tech community or the real estate community?
It's interesting. Like I play in a lot of different spaces, and where there I'm not the only black individual in that space, but from the position I play in as the owner of the construction and development company or the owner of the fund, that's not what is as typical. But I've been fortunate that, both on the construction and real estate side and on the VC side, I haven't been in a situation where there's been blatant racism. Obviously, there's been incidents where on the construction side, from time to time, if I don't have on my development hat on, or they may think I'm part of the security team, if they don't know that I'm the owner of the land or construction team. And I think that's more as a lack of representation in those industries. So I wouldn't necessarily call it was racism per se. I'll call it more so lack of representation in that industry, and as a result, that individual felt there's no way that person could be the developer or the owner, or the builder. And same thing on the VC side, because of lack of representation. I think if a black individual walks into a tech event, they may not think that automatically he runs his own VC fund. They may say he's probably a program director, marketing, sales within a tech company, possibly a founder, but for them, the first instance wouldn't be to say he runs his own VC fund.
Yeah.
But now we're changing that, and the tech space and the tech ecosystem is allowing that change and very welcoming of that change, which is what's been amazing, and that's what makes Toronto and Canada such a great city and country, is the melting pot and the ability of diversity, and right down from the mayor, the premier, and the prime minister in acknowledging that and seeing what policies and programs they could put in place to help increase that.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing from that is rep matters,
Yes,
which is why we're here
it absolutely
putting an
does.
asterisk on that.
It absolutely
Really
does.
putting an asterisk on that. So, what do you think the barriers are the black community faces in the tech and VC spaces?
Access to networks, access to resources and capital. When you think about the VC space, that's a true definition of entrepreneurship. Uh, you know, it's hard enough to start a business. It's hard enough to start a business that invests in businesses, right? So for us as a community, we're still trying to create more businesses, right? So before you create more businesses and generate more capital, then you get to the level of, let's create a fund that invests in businesses, right? So as a community, because of the lack of infrastructure, that's why we haven't really played on the VC space. A lot of time in a lot of my speaking engagements, I always talk about a sustainable community, an economically driven community, these three things: institutional relationship, driving home ownership, and driving small businesses, right? So for us, for the last 15 years, that's what we've been focused on doing in Dreammaker: driving home ownership through our development company and our realty company, building institutional relationship through our philanthropy company, our organization, Dream Legacy Foundation, and now driving small businesses and businesses in general through our fund. So we're excited that by having those three components in, we're able to shed light in different industries that typically you wouldn't see us playing in.
And given those pain points that you've identified, what are things that LPs can do to help the black community in this space?
I think the biggest thing LPs could do is is really be open um, to a different perspective, open to different relationships, different cultures, open to collaborations outside of their norm, open to going again outside their circle, and that's really what it is. And I was fortunate, growing in and being involved in different environments. I was able to see all different walks of life, all different types of cultures, all different types of industry leaders. And as a result of that, that shaped the way I've been able to do business. So what we're trying to do is make that change available for any entrepreneur or any individual within the Black community that's willing to take that bold step into VC space, into launching their tech company, into becoming a builder or developer. So we say with LPs is, and they're doing it, and that's how I got in. There's individual LPs that reached out to me and say, hey, Isaac, there's an opportunity in this company. Yeah, you want to come in? You've shown interest in wanting to invest. You want to come into this company, or you want to let me introduce you to this person that's doing a fund of a fund, and maybe you could come in on that. So I think, and let me help you mentor. Let me mentor you with the business that you're trying to grow, with the fund that you're trying to raise. So I think just the LPs continue to do basically what they're already doing and amplifying that. So we're creating a new infrastructure that it doesn't exist right now for LPs, which is an infrastructure where they could go into an incubator, they could go into a building and see 10, 20, 30 successful Black entrepreneurs to be able to invest in. It's no different from universities trying to increase the number of Black students within their university. What they had to do was find organizations, teachers that were teaching in Black communities or that had access to a Black network, right? So that's why institutional relationships are so key. So for us to disrupt an industry, you got to be willing to collaborate and integrate within that institution and shed light into spaces they may not have access to, and then bring that access within that institution. So the VC space, there's a lot of Black entrepreneurs. It's not that you're just coming out now. They're just being noticed now because there's more deliberate focus on trying to reach out to Black entrepreneurs. Universities, organizations, corporations that don't have access to that network because they're not from that community are now deliberately looking for individuals that may have access to that community, right? So that's how our foundation is playing a role with the banks when it comes to lending, or with the universities, or even with the hospital. We're playing a role within the hospital, changing the narrative on the type of research they focus on, to say let's focus more research on, let's say, sickle cell, which impacts the Black community predominantly more,
Yeah,
right? So they're more
disproportionately.
deliberate. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What it sounds to me, what it sounds like to me, is that you've taken it upon yourself to create a new pattern for LPs to identify and say, "Oh no, we've seen this. Money has flown in this direction, and it's increased exponentially. I'd like to be a part of that." And I personally, I think that's so amazing, because instead of saying, hey, help us create this pattern, you said, I'll create this pattern, and now you'll believe because you could see as well.
And I create a pattern within a space that is familiar to the LPs. It's stats have shown, whether through Goldman Sachs and other different institutions, that diverse groups, diverse boards, diverse founders have shown a direct increase in EBITDA, direct increase in revenue.
Yeah.
So LPs know
Deloitte,
this.
McKinsey,
Deloitte, a lot.
everyone did
The stats
a
are
study
there.
on this. The stats are there.
The stats are there, but if the companies aren't in your present, you may not go looking for it. So what we've done with creating the Black Innovation Fellowship and now creating the Black Innovation Fund is we've created it. We've created it in a space that LPs, the mainstream LPs, are familiar with. So there's not much further due diligence they need to do. When someone graduates out of Harvard or U of T or any of the different universities that are well known, regardless of their background, regardless of where they were born, regardless of where they grew up, when they go in front of an employer and they see Harvard or they see U of T, it breaks down a lot of the barriers. So what we've done by creating the Black Innovation Fellowship within the DMZ, we've now broken down substantial barriers for Black entrepreneurs that have saying they've come out of that because they're now in a space that other companies, corporations, LPs are already in that space.
Yeah. And something we spoke about a lot is the cost of lost opportunity for not including the Black community in tech.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that for me?
Well, like I know the stats has been playing around even in the US and what the economy, the US economy would look like if there was a higher percentage of middle class from the Black community. And it's in the trillions. When you look at all the different businesses that are being generated, it's all about markets, right? Whether it is the Black woman, the female market, the children, there's different cultural differences. So when you don't have businesses that are created to speak to those different cultures, to those different groups, that's a missed opportunity from a revenue point of view, which is a missed opportunity from a tax point of view for the economy, and a missed point of view from a growth point of view overall for the economy. So by the Black community becoming more involved with creation of businesses and the flow of capital, really the economy wins as a whole, right? Because now they're getting more individuals generating income, more individuals generating revenue, and more circulations of the dollar from not just one group, but multiple groups. Sure.
Within the community
Within
itself.
the community.
And tech, because it grows at such a rapid pace, and specifically right now in Canada,
Correct.
right? As we spoke about, tech is just booming.
It's booming, and that's why this is, and they've stated a few times in the U.S. This is one of the last opportunity for the Black community to really try and level the playing field, right? Because with technology, it cuts across all industries. So regardless of the industry you have an interest in or the space you have an interest in, if you have an interest in sports, there's sports tech. If you have an interest in healthcare, there's the health tech, right? So that's why with technology, and it's an easier from a cost point of view barrier of entry, but still there is a cost of entry to true access from the funding point of view, the mentorship point of view, the networking point of view, which all of that was taken away and reopened through the Black Innovation Fellowship, right? So that's why with technology, it's so important that all the community leaders put a focus on it. The government, if they truly want to help increase economically the Black community, put a focus on how they could involve the Black community more into tech and innovation within the city.
I want to take a step back and just think about how you transitioned from real estate into VC.
Yes.
How smooth was that transition? I mean, it seems to me from the outside perspective very smooth.
Yeah.
How did you make it seem that smooth? Because I'm sure it wasn't. There's a learning curve. There's a lot of things associated with that.
Correct.
What was that like?
Well, every day I'm always learning. I'm always reading things, and I'll never forget. It was about 5 years ago. We gave a gift through our foundation to the Sheldon Levy, Sheldon and Tracy Learning Center at Yonge and Dundas, the Ryerson Student Learning Center, and the room was named the Isaac Olowolafe Digital Media Lab. And when we made that gift, the former president Sheldon Levy gave me a tour of the DMZ, and that was the first time I saw entrepreneurs within the DMZ. They approached me asking about if I wanted to be part of their seed round or their friends and family round. And I'll admit it, at that time I wasn't fully aware of what that even meant.
Yeah.
So I said sure, and then I went and researched it. Right.
So you said you committed to the investment and then researched what the market was like and what that meant.
Because I was just amazed that at a university, they were putting a focus on entrepreneurs. Again, I built my business when I was in my second year of U of T, and at that time, the focus on entrepreneurship, wasn't really there within a university. So I was amazed to see how Ryerson was ahead of the curve and really focusing on entrepreneurs. But then again, because I saw where tech and innovation was going, I knew from a company's point of view, if I wanted to be sustainable, if the company wanted to be sustainable long term, it had to diversify in other areas as well too. And we saw that tech was the big thing that we had to diversify into. So again, we did a lot of research, a lot of studying of different indicators to focus on. And that's why we really focused first off on prop tech. We said, okay, how can the way we we buy real estate change? Could it be done online? So we invest in a company that does online sales. How could the way we look at properties change? So we invest in an AR VR company, right? Which is a shift in the way properties can be marketed to investors and other purchasers, right? So that was that gave us our easy transition into the VC space. We're still heavily, obviously, integrated within the real estate space, but at least now we're starting to get more of an understanding of how the tech space works.
Hmm. And when we spoke earlier, you spoke about the importance of location.
Yes.
And that seemed like a common thread between, obviously, real estate. Location is really important, but also, can you talk about the location of the Isaac Olowolafe lab and how that mattered in terms of this innovative incubator that just kind of.
Location is directly connected to environment, and depending on what that environment will shape who you are, who your company is all about, and what you're trying to do. So again, as you mentioned, in real estate, we always talk about location, location, location. All our projects, like this one, our first condo, directly across of Yorkdale, location. So when we were doing the gift at Ryerson, and they told me that the room, the Isaac Olowolafe Digital Media Lab, will be right beside the sandbox, I didn't really understand the full scope of that location until the first day. Again, the room opened up. We saw students come in, and the purpose of the room is to provide access to students, different technologies, to be able to come and do collaboration to hopefully start in a business. But right beside that room was the sandbox. And when I went to the sandbox again, I saw all these entrepreneurs, and I asked them, what's the sandbox about? And the sandbox, it says, the initial level, first level of the DMZ, which is the sandbox, the validator, and the accelerator. So by my room being located right beside the sandbox, that had a direct impact of me having a further interest in being like, how can I get more involved within the tech space? I was exposed to something that I didn't know a year prior to that, only because of the location of our room. So location, like environment, is so important. So that's why what our foundation now does is we go to at-risk schools and we take students on what we call as a dream school trip, and we bring them to different locations, our construction site, our hotel by the airport, and then the tech room, right? So they're exposed based on the location that they're in to something that will allow them to start dreaming bigger and allow them to realize that they could have big dreams because they see representation of those that have big dreams as well too.
And so students at Ryerson, the way you explained it was kind of a funnel. They'd go into the digital media lab, and then the sandbox, and then
Correct.
the,
And then
the
to the
validator,
validator.
and so
Exactly.
on. So.
Yeah. So it was literally a full path, and it was almost like an aha moment when I saw that the sandbox was the first level of the DMZ. And then once the business is getting traction, then they apply to the validator. And once they're starting to raise capital, they get into the accelerator. And the digital media lab was the initial stage where you get access to technology, right? And now, past the accelerator is the fund for companies that are ready to scale, right? So, again, because of location, going back to what you were saying, we're really exposed to the possibilities of creating what eventually became the Black Innovation Fellowship.
Very inspiring. So, how has your lived experience as a Black man helped you in your career? I believe, being Black is an amazing blessing.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and we talk a lot about the difficulties around being Black, but I want to know what the benefits are.
The benefits, again, like my parents are hardworking individuals. They came here when they were in '78. My dad came here, and in watching them, the ability to take calculated risk, the ability to work hard, if needed, take on multiple jobs, make sacrifices where needed, and those were the sort of the lessons that were brought into me, and the ability to give back, and that's where the whole philanthropy piece comes in. So as a Black man in Toronto, because of the spaces I was in, and because I didn't see a lot of representation in those spaces, it gave me the ability to work even harder, to make sure that no matter what, there will not be an excuse as to I wasn't able to achieve this because I was from the Black community or because I grew up here. or because my parents don't have a background in construction or don't have a background in VC. I didn't want to use that as a hindrance. I used that as a point to just work even harder to make sure that I was able to sort of get to the front of the line and push through any possible barriers.
Hmm. So it sounds like resilience.
Resilience, yes.
I love how I'm summarizing
Yeah,
everything you say. I'm
no,
just like, man, what's the one key takeaway I could just plug in here? Resilience.
resilience.
Awesome. So, what advice would you have for Black entrepreneurs who are trying to raise funds here in Canada?
I think the biggest advice, don't be down on yourself. You're gonna get a lot of no's, regardless of you being black or from any other community.
It's just tough.
It's just tough. Yeah, I know, and that's why I never like to create excuses outside what the real excuse is, which is to be an entrepreneur is hard. To be a developer and a builder is hard. It's not because you're black, that's why you can't make it. There's no excuse of that. And Toronto is a great city that the opportunity is there. It takes a lot of work, a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, and a lot of dedication and the ability to not give up. So the good thing is that with the program, because of where it's located, because of the environment that it's in, if you put in that work, if you put in that dedication and that sacrifice, you will break through. It's not going to be easy, but eventually you will break through. If you're truly creating a solution to a problem within the industry you're trying to generate revenue in, that's what you got to ask yourself first. Am I creating a company that is a problem solver, or am I just creating a company, right? So if the first realization is that I'm creating a company that's going to solve a problem, then you're halfway through to getting successful in it. Now, the other half is you got to put in a lot of work. You gotta push yourself. You gotta have that drive. You gotta have the ability to communicate with all different communities, and be able to sell what you want to do. And you're gonna have the ability to accept multiple no's before you get that one yes. And then once you get that yes, have the ability to perform so that you could get more yeses and execute.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So, how do you see Dreammaker Ventures affecting the ecosystem in the next 5 to 10 years? What's the goal?
Yeah, so the goal really is, again, is to create create multiple unicorns within the black community. It's never been done in Canada. So that's one of our biggest goals. And then within our fellowship, the Black Innovation Fellowship, is that within the next 5 to 10 years, there's no need to say this is a black program. This is for black entrepreneurs. You go into any tech space within the city, within the country, and you, especially within Toronto, and you see a diverse group. You see diverse founders, diverse teams, and we are just glad to be part with other groups that are trying to make that same change, but part of that change within the tech space. But on the funding piece, through Dreammaker Ventures, we're excited because we know other VCs within the community will be created, will be inspired to want to jump into it. We're be inspired to say, you know what, I was thinking about this, but I didn't think I was able to do it. But well, here's the roadmap to now do it. Here's who I need to connect with. Here are other VCs within the space that are willing to pick up the phone, mentor me, and co-invest with me, or connect me with other LPs that they may not need to invest right now. So we know that through the fellowship and through the fund, we're in the next 5 to 10 years, the landscape of the tech space is going to be drastically different. It's going to be different from who are the LPs within companies. It's going to be different from who are the VC managers and the fund managers. And it's going to be different from expectations of other LPs, of who could play in this game, right? So that's going to be the biggest change of who is actually playing in the game. Because a lot of people talk about diversity and inclusion. A lot of organizations are very diverse. We're trying to make a lot of our organization and industries be inclusive, right? To be able to have individuals within the black community play in the game that, or in the industry that those organizations are trying to be diverse in. So apart from inviting them to the game, but actually having them participate in the game, in the wins, in the losses, but basically participating in the game.
That's an amazing, and you're on road to do it. It's gonna happen. It's not even a question of what you hope to accomplish. It's what will happen. I can see it. I can see the vision. So, how do you think the tech ecosystem and VC ecosystem, by extension, is positioned in terms of their ability to create, change in terms of anti-Black racism in society?
I think it is positioned very, very well, and for one reason, because the main leaders, whether it be on the incubator side or the innovation side within the banks or different corporations, they've all acknowledged that there's a problem, right? And groups have been created as a result of that acknowledgement. It'll be much harder if there wasn't an acknowledgement, whether from the government point of view or the corporation's point of view or the LP's point of view, right? But it's clear, like even with Harley from Shopify, president of Shopify, stand up and saying, you know what, we want to support Black entrepreneurs and help to lead the round for us to raise $1 million for the fellowship. And now we've gone to a point where we raised $3 million. So that was an individual that was outside the Black community, but very influential within the tech space, that stood up and said, there is a problem and I want to do something about it, right? So that's why I know that the tech space will change. I know the tech space will break down any systemic barriers that they were facing, and hopefully other industries, whether it be the education industry, the police industry, the government, etc., will be able to look at the tech space as an example of what they were able to do in a short period of time to make the tech space more inclusive.
Yeah, and to add to a point that you made earlier is how the tech space permeates everything else, every other industry.
Correct.
And so
I
truly believe that by extension, in the sort of corporate world, let's say it, even though the tech space isn't necessarily corporate, but in that sort of professional environment, they're very well positioned to create change across society. So do you think that's their responsibility, though? Because there's two different things. There's, being well positioned, and then there's taking on accountability and responsibility for being a change maker.
I think everyone plays a part. I don't think there's one industry or one group that should shoulder the whole change. I think everyone plays a part in making that change systemically, and acknowledging that change. Why it's important that the tech space acknowledges it, because again, it's a low entry barrier if the access is there, but also most importantly, it cuts across all industry. So the changes that happens within the tech space will be seen within the banks because of fintech, will be seen within the hospitals because of health tech, will be seen within the education system because of ed tech, will be seen with the way cars operate because of AI, right? So it's very important that we get it right within the tech space, because eventually that will help other industries shift as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Really
Pleasure.
appreciate it. Thank you for joining us on Rep Matters.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching Rep Matters. Keep the conversation going by liking, commenting, and especially sharing our videos with your community. Stay updated by following us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and subscribing to our YouTube channel. See you next time.